Have you ever realized that the moment you stop giving, people panic? The moment you stop explaining, stop chasing, stop bending yourself to fit into someone else's comfort, the entire dynamic shifts. Suddenly, the same people who ignored your silence start asking what's wrong. The same ones who took your kindness for granted now accuse you of being distant, cold, or selfish. But maybe, just maybe, what they call selfishness is the first act of self-respect. Why is it that walking away, not fighting, is often the most powerful move you can make? Because in a world addicted to constant reaction, silence is the ultimate rebellion. When you withdraw your attention, you withdraw your energy, your validation, your power. And for those who have been feeding off it, your absence becomes unbearable. Niccolò Machiavelli, the man history painted as ruthless, understood this truth better than anyone. He knew that control isn't maintained by constant confrontation, but by calculated distance. He dared to say what polite society still refuses to admit. Sometimes, to preserve your soul, you must be willing to cut coldly, cleanly, and consciously. This isn't cruelty. It's clarity. Because there comes a point when holding on costs more than letting go. When compassion turns into self-betrayal. And in that moment, the most loving act you can perform for yourself, and even for others, is to end what no longer serves growth. In today's world, that lesson is more urgent than ever. We live in an age of overexposure, emotionally, digitally, spiritually. Everyone wants a piece of you. But Machiavelli whispers from centuries ago, power doesn't belong to those who give endlessly, but to those who know exactly when to stop. Before we dive deeper into this philosophy, before we explore the psychology of attachment, the illusion of loyalty, and the liberation that comes from calculated severance, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, so you'll be the first to receive the next insight I share. Because what you're about to hear might just change the way you see power, freedom, and yourself. We are born reaching out, tiny hands grasping for warmth, connection, safety. From the first moment we cry, we learn that survival depends on attachment. Someone must hold us, feed us, reassure us that we exist. And though we grow, the mechanism never disappears. It only evolves. As adults, we keep reaching toward love, approval, attention, status, believing that connection equals meaning. But here lies the paradox. What once guaranteed survival now often becomes the source of our suffering. You stay in relationships that drain you because walking away feels like dying. You endure jobs that consume your soul because the idea of being without identity terrifies you more than exhaustion. You cling to friends who no longer see you, to lovers who have already left in spirit, to versions of yourself that expired years ago. Why? Because the human psyche equates separation with annihilation. To let go feels like ceasing to exist. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. He wrote that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. That is the truth behind our attachment, not love, but avoidance. We cling not out of devotion, but out of fear. Fear of silence, fear of emptiness, fear of meeting the unfiltered self that emerges when all distractions fade. The attachment we glorify as loyalty is often a disguised terror of solitude. Freud, too, saw this tension. He believed that beneath our civilized surface lies the primal need for security, what he called the repetition compulsion. We repeat what is familiar even when it hurts, because the unknown feels far more dangerous. A toxic relationship may wound you, but at least you understand its rhythm. Freedom, on the other hand, demands that you step into the void, and the void has no guarantees. Look closer at your own life. Think of the moments you felt the urge to walk away but didn't. What stopped you? Was it love, or was it guilt? The subtle voice whispering, "If I leave, I'll hurt them." But that voice rarely belongs to compassion. It belongs to conditioning. Since childhood, we've been taught that good people endure, that patience equals virtue, that leaving means betrayal. So we stay long after the lesson has been learned, long after the bond is decayed. We stay because we've confused suffering with depth. But every time you remain in a situation that your soul has already outgrown, you teach yourself to be powerless. You reinforce the illusion that your worth is dependent on others. And that illusion is precisely what Machiavelli sought to destroy. He saw how easily human beings become pawns in emotional games, ruled not by reason, but by the fear of abandonment. The same mechanism that makes a servant loyal to a cruel master, makes a lover loyal to an indifferent partner, makes a citizen loyal to a corrupt ruler. It's not devotion, it's dependency. When you finally begin to question this dynamic, the mind rebels. You will feel the inner conflict between comfort and authenticity, between safety and truth. Jung called this the confrontation with the shadow, the terrifying moment when you realize that freedom demands sacrifice. To reclaim your power, you must betray the version of yourself that needed permission to exist. The fear of severance, then, is not really the fear of losing others, it's the fear of losing who you were with them. The identity built on approval, the mask constructed to be loved. Letting go isn't just about removing people from your life. It's about removing the lies you told yourself to keep them there. And here is the revelation that both psychology and philosophy agree on. You cannot be free while you are owned by attachment. Every bond that isn't conscious becomes a chain. And every time you refuse to walk away from what diminishes you, you trade your sovereignty for comfort. Machiavelli understood that power begins not with conquest, but with self-control. And self-control begins the moment you stop letting fear dictate who you hold on to. Because what we cling to reveals not our strength, but our weakness. We hold on to what we do not, yet trust ourselves to live without. So before you think about who you must cut off, first ask, what am I afraid to face within myself if I do? Because until that question is answered, every act of severance will only be another form of running away. But once you face it, once you see that what you fear losing is often the very thing that has kept you small, you begin to understand why Machiavelli valued calculated distance over blind devotion. Because the truest form of control is not over others, but over the instinct to cling. There's a moment in The Prince when Niccolo Machiavelli writes, "It is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." For centuries, those words have been misunderstood, used to paint him as a villain, a heartless manipulator, obsessed with domination. But those who actually listened to what he was saying realized something deeper. Machiavelli wasn't promoting tyranny. He was describing reality. He was warning us that mercy without boundaries isn't virtue, it's negligence. He lived in a world of political chaos, betrayal, and shifting alliances, where good intentions often met violent ends. What he witnessed in politics, we live every day in our personal lives. That too much compassion, given to the wrong people, turns into a weapon against yourself. And the tragedy is that those who exploit your kindness will still call you cruel when you finally decide to stop bleeding for them. Machiavelli understood a timeless truth about human nature. People respect what they cannot easily access. When generosity becomes predictable, it loses value. When availability is constant, it breeds entitlement. The same rule that governs power in kingdoms governs energy in relationships. The ruler who is too forgiving invites rebellion. The person who is too understanding invites exploitation. He wasn't saying, don't love. He was saying, love wisely. Love with awareness. Mercy without discernment becomes cruelty, both to yourself and to those you enable. When you spare someone from the consequences of their actions out of guilt, you teach them to repeat their mistakes. When you carry emotional weight that isn't yours, you deprive them of the opportunity to grow stronger. What feels like kindness is often self-deception, a way to maintain an image of goodness rather than confront the discomfort of truth. Carl Jung once said that what you resist persists. Machiavelli would have agreed. The weakness you refuse to cut from your life doesn't disappear, it multiplies. You think you're saving a relationship by tolerating what wounds you, but what you're really doing is nurturing the disease. Empathy without limits becomes an accomplice to destruction. History is full of examples. Leaders who refused to take necessary action because they wanted to be loved ended up being betrayed. Parents who never set boundaries raised children who despised them. Lovers who couldn't say enough lost themselves in the chaos of someone else's emotions. The refusal to confront, to sever when it's time, always leads to collapse. In The Prince, Machiavelli doesn't glorify fear. He redefines respect. He saw that love, when demanded, is unstable. It changes with mood, convenience, or circumstance. But fear, in his sense, was not terror. It was awareness of consequence. A healthy kind of fear, born from clarity, not cruelty. And that's what we've forgotten today. We confuse being kind with being harmless, forgetting that harmlessness is not the same as virtue. Think about it. When was the last time someone truly respected you for never saying no? When has your silence stopped anyone from crossing the line? Machiavelli would argue that your passivity doesn't make you noble, it makes you predictable. And predictability, in any system of power, is weakness. To reclaim your dignity, you must accept the discomfort of being misunderstood. You must accept that some will call your boundaries cold, your silence rude, your departure selfish. Let them. Because what they call cruelty is often nothing more than the moment you stop allowing them to exploit your mercy. Machiavelli's philosophy was never about manipulation, it was about self-possession. He asked a question few dare to face. What do you owe to those who drain you? If your answer is everything, then you've already surrendered. But if your answer is nothing that costs my peace, you've understood him. Mercy, in its pure form, is sacred. But mercy without reason is poison. And the hardest truth of all is this: not everyone deserves your forgiveness. Some deserve the lesson of your absence. Some people will only understand your worth once you are gone. This is what Machiavelli meant by calculated severance, the art of ending without hatred, detaching without malice, cutting cleanly so that both can heal. A ruler who cannot separate emotion from duty loses his kingdom. A person who cannot separate love from self-preservation loses their soul. So when you feel the weight of guilt pressing against your decision to walk away, remember, it is not cruelty to end what destroys you. It is an act of mercy toward the only person you are truly responsible for yourself. And when you finally make peace with that truth, the world will call you many things: cold, detached, ruthless. But beneath those words lies a quiet fear, because they will sense what Machiavelli knew all along, that the one who cannot be manipulated is the one who cannot be controlled. In today's world, we are told that connection is everything. Stay in touch, stay reachable, keep your notifications on, keep responding. The modern individual has been conditioned to believe that being available emotionally, socially, professionally is the same as being valuable. But what if the very thing we call connection is slowly eroding our sense of self? We live in a culture that fears absence. You're expected to answer every text, attend every event, maintain every friendship, hold every piece of the crumbling structure together, because stepping away feels like betrayal. We've built an economy not just of attention, but of emotional labor. You're not just selling your time anymore. You're selling your presence, your empathy, your energy. The world consumes you, pixel by pixel, favor by favor, until you no longer know what parts of you are still yours. And that's why Machiavelli's idea of calculated severance feels more revolutionary now than it did in the 16th century. To him, strategic distance was not coldness, it was survival. To us, it's sanity. Because when you begin to practice the art of conscious withdrawal, something profound happens. The chaos begins to lose its grip. You stop reacting to everything and everyone. You stop being a puppet for people's expectations. You become the observer, not the prey. Think of your workplace. How many times have you said yes when every cell in your body screamed no? You stay late to prove loyalty, You take on extra work to seem indispensable, and you answer emails on weekends just to avoid the fear of being replaced. But every unspoken boundary becomes an invisible wound. Eventually, exhaustion replaces purpose. Machiavelli would have told you, a ruler who tries to please everyone ends up respected by no one. The same applies to you. The worker who never says no is not valued, they're used. Or think of relationships. You meet someone who loves your kindness, your softness, your willingness to give. But slowly, that love turns into expectation. Your availability becomes their entitlement. And one day, you realize you're no longer in a relationship, you're in an arrangement that feeds only one side. The moment you try to take space, they panic. They say, "You've changed." But what they mean is, "You've stopped serving me." That's when calculated severance becomes sacred. To walk away consciously is not abandonment, it's self-respect. It's reclaiming the parts of you that have been outsourced to others. When you cut ties with what drains you, you're not losing something, you're regaining clarity. You're remembering what it feels like to breathe without seeking permission. This act of detachment is not impulsive or emotional. It's deliberate. Calculated severance means you no longer react in anger, you respond in awareness. You don't slam doors. You close them gently but firmly. You understand that not every ending must be dramatic to be decisive. It's not an escape, it's an evolution. Carl Jung described this process as individuation, the journey of becoming whole, distinct, and authentic. To individuate is to withdraw your projections from others and bring them back into yourself. It's to stop needing validation to know your worth. And that's exactly what calculated severance achieves. You stop seeking to fix people who refuse to heal. You stop feeding systems that depend on your compliance. You stop trying to explain your silence to those who profit from your noise. In this light, letting go becomes a ritual of rebirth. Each time you withdraw from what no longer aligns with your essence, you create space for something new, an idea, a purpose, a self that isn't defined by obligation. You begin to see that saying no is not rejection, but redirection. Look around you. The people who seem calm, centered, untouchable, they're not heartless. They've simply learned the cost of giving too much. They understand that peace is expensive and the currency is boundaries. They've made peace with being misunderstood, with being labeled distant, with disappointing those who benefit from their compliance. They know, as Machiavelli did, that emotional sovereignty is the highest form of power. And when you finally master the art of calculated severance, you begin to see how much energy you wasted trying to hold together what was meant to fall apart. You stop chasing validation, stop rescuing others from their own lessons, stop confusing empathy with surrender. You become selective not out of pride, but out of purpose. In a world where attention is currency, indifference becomes wealth. In a culture obsessed with connection, detachment becomes freedom. Calculated severance is not just a political principle, it's a spiritual one. It teaches you that sometimes the most profound form of love is to walk away with grace. So the next time you feel guilty for closing a door, remember this. Endings are not punishments. They are invitations to return to yourself. And those who fear your absence were never nourished by your presence. They were only dependent on your availability. To live by this truth is not to become cold, but conscious. It's not to reject humanity, but to finally respect your own. Every act of letting go begins not with the world around you, but with the world within. You cannot master calculated severance until you understand what keeps you attached, what invisible thread still binds you to pain, to approval, to the illusion of safety. This is not about cutting people off. It's about cutting through the stories that have kept you enslaved to them. Let's start with the first truth. You don't fear loss, you fear emptiness. You've been conditioned to believe that your worth is measured by how many people need you, how much you give, and how often you say yes. But this is not love. It's dependence disguised as purpose. Machiavelli, the political realist, would tell you that power lies not in being needed but in being whole. He understood that whoever depends too much on others for validation is no longer a leader, but a servant of circumstance. Carl Jung called this process the withdrawal of projection. Every time you see yourself reflected in another person, someone to save, someone to fix, someone to please, you are handing over a piece of your soul. You're outsourcing your sense of meaning. Calculated severance demands that you call those projections back home, that you reclaim every fragment of yourself you've scattered across the people you tried to keep. The second truth is this: endings are teachers, not tragedies. Most people resist them because they associate ending with failure. If I leave, it means I gave up. No, it means you woke up. You realize that staying was an act of unconsciousness. Machiavelli never romanticized endurance. To him, the one who hesitates to act when it's time to act loses everything. The same rule applies to the psyche. When you delay what must end, you allow decay to take the place of decision. Practicing calculated severance means learning to recognize the precise moment when something has served its purpose. A relationship that taught you love and pain. A job that taught you ambition and exhaustion. A belief that once protected you but now limits you. The art is not in cutting faster, it's in cutting cleaner. When you act from clarity, not emotion, you transform endings into initiations. But how do you reach that clarity? You begin by facing the silence you've been avoiding. Sit with the discomfort. Feel the void that appears when you stop running, stop explaining, stop giving. At first, it will feel unbearable. Your mind will scream to fill it with distractions, with people, with noise. Resist that impulse. Because beneath that silence lies the voice of something ancient, your true self. It whispers not in words but in awareness. You are not what you give. You are what remains when you stop giving. Freud wrote that freedom begins the moment we acknowledge our inner conflicts instead of projecting them onto the world. That's what calculated severance really is, a confrontation with the truth that no one can complete you. When you understand this, detachment stops being an act of cruelty and becomes an act of clarity. You no longer withdraw to punish, you withdraw to preserve. You no longer walk away to escape, you walk away to evolve. And from that awareness emerges something profound: compassion without attachment. You can love deeply without losing yourself. You can care without clinging. You can forgive without reopening the wound. Machiavelli would call this strategic intelligence. Jung would call it individuation. Modern psychology calls it emotional maturity. But whatever name you give it, the essence is the same: freedom through consciousness. The world will tell you that letting go makes you cold, that you must hold on, try harder, stay longer. But remember this: the ones who fear your distance are often the ones who benefited from your self-abandonment. You are not heartless for choosing peace over chaos. You are simply no longer willing to pay the price of being needed more than being known. When you master this art, something extraordinary happens. You stop reacting to life, you start directing it. You no longer chase validation. You create boundaries that attract respect. You no longer fear solitude, you begin to savor it. Solitude becomes not a void, but a sanctuary, a space where your inner authority is restored. Machiavelli's wisdom wasn't about manipulation, it was about mastery. And mastery, in the truest sense, is not power over others but over yourself. The one who can walk away, consciously and calmly, is the one who no longer needs to prove their worth through struggle. So ask yourself, what in your life has already ended, but you keep reviving out of fear? What version of yourself are you still trying to keep alive, because you're afraid of who you will become without it? These are not rhetorical questions. They are doorways to transformation. And when you finally answer them with honesty, you'll realize something Machiavelli, Jung, and every awakened soul before you understood. Freedom begins the moment you stop negotiating with what drains you. Stop apologizing for walking away. Stop explaining your silence. You owe no one your peace. There comes a moment in every life when you realize that staying small to keep the peace is the greatest violence you can commit against yourself. You've given enough explanations, enough second chances, enough pieces of yourself to people who were never meant to carry them. The truth is simple. You were never obligated to keep burning so that others could stay warm. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He saw that real strength is not found in constant resistance, but in restraint. In the courage to step back when every impulse tells you to stay. In the ability to hold your center while the world pulls at your edges. Power doesn't come from control, it comes from the courage to let go. Letting go is not weakness. It is the final proof of power. Anyone can cling. Anyone can beg, chase, or compromise their dignity to stay connected. But it takes immense strength to release what you love, to stop fighting for what refuses to grow, and to trust that what is meant for you will not require your suffering to stay. The world around you will call it coldness. They will say you've changed, that you're distant, unfeeling, heartless. Let them, because they're not reacting to your absence, they're reacting to your independence. They sense something terrifying. They can no longer control you. You've become ungovernable in the most sacred sense. And as you walk away from what no longer aligns, you'll begin to feel a strange quiet. Not loneliness, but peace. The kind that comes when you stop negotiating your worth. When you no longer explain your boundaries. When you finally understand that love without respect is dependency, and peace without honesty is illusion. That is calculated severance, the art of ending with dignity, the art of choosing clarity over chaos. It's the realization that your silence can be louder than your argument, that your absence can teach more than your presence ever could. It's knowing that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for others is to stop enabling their comfort at the expense of your truth. So the next time your intuition whispers that something has run its course, listen. Don't wait for it to break you before you release it. You don't have to hate anyone to walk away. You don't have to justify your decision. You don't even have to explain it, because life isn't a courtroom, it's a classroom. And every ending, when done consciously, is not a punishment, but a graduation. The art of life, like the art of power, lies in knowing when to leave the table. Walk away not with anger, but with clarity. Not with pride, but with peace. Not with fear, but with the quiet knowing that this act of letting go is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your freedom. If this message spoke to something deep within you, if it reminded you of your strength, your dignity, or your peace, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to hear the next awakening message we release. And in the comments below, tell me what part of this reflection resonated most with you. Which truth, which sentence, made you pause and feel something real? Your story might be the very light someone else needs to find their own courage to walk away.